invincible ZRK. Only the mighty Zoidzilla can stand against me.
I am the Namer, guardian of the names of power. Before your world even existed, my people were an ancient race. Now they are gone, and only I remain, keeper of my people's history. Across the endless tracts of space have I traveled, to return to the planet of my birth, Zoidstar. Though my people perished long ago, and their cities were buried by the shifting sands, the machines remain. It is these that have brought me here to perform the last act of the Zoidarian race, the giving of the names of power. When my race was young and had an interest in the affairs of the galaxy, they built the machines, mighty engines of destruction which gave the power of life and death over the other creatures in the galaxy. The Zoidarians turned their gaze outward and laid waste to 1,000 star systems with their machines, their Zoids. But ruling a galaxy was not enough for the Zoidarians. It was not the conquests, but the battles they enjoyed. And though all intelligent life trembled in the shadow of the Zoids, my people battled on, machine against machine, Zoidarian against Zoidarian, in the further pursuit of glory. Zoidarian lives were needlessly sacrificed to the god of battle, and the race dwindled in numbers until the elders outlawed the Zoid duels. But they couldn't outlaw the Zoidarian love of combat. The Zoidarian pilots of the giant war machines were replaced by androids, and thus the heroic combat could continue without threat to Zoidarian life. Too late came the order. Too late to save a once mighty race from extinction, and now only I remain. Only I and the Zoids. And though my people created the Zoids, I have no power to control them. For the war machines have become the living embodiment of the Zoidarian thirst for combat, with lives and wills of their own. They exist only to fight, to ensure that their heroic combat lasts for all eternity. Now I stand on the sand-blasted surface of a world I used to call home, high on a rock, scanning the horizon for some sign of movement, knowing that out there, behind the sand clouds, lurk the deadliest war machines in the universe. Ah! It begins!
Titans of planet Z, built for war and Hellic Republic decree. Mighty necks and tails of iron and steel. The Bigasaurus and sauropod shape peel. Proud shakes as the Bigasaurus march to war. Metal sauropod bodies of blue ore. White heads and gray limbs of techno light. The Hellic war machines will bring the fight. Bigasaurus, the muscle machines of war. Bigasaurus. Techno roar. Bigasaurus and the sauropods of with these invincible dinosaurs do as they please. But now comes opposition from the sea. From Dark Continent they now disagree. Dark Zoids with Dark Zoidans in control. Bigasaurs will destroy our foes in whole. Bigasaurs, colossal machines of war. Bigasaurs, nothing step protect the roar. Bigasaurs, the sauropods of power. Bigasaurs, masters of the helicower. Oxfordians course, but new foes now come. There's another empire, powers for war tries. Zoids of their own, we must push them back. Bigasaurs, show your power and attack. Bigasaurs, colossal machines of war. Bigasaurs, every step protect the roar. Bigasaurs, the sauropods of power. Bigasaurs, masters of the helicower. Bigasaurs, colossal machines of war. Bigasaurs, every step protect the roar. War Bigasaurs, to the sauropods of power. Bigasaurs, show your power and attack.
Devastating though these machines may be, they are the least powerful of their kind. Stronger and more savage are the Power Zoids. Giant machines whose very passing can topple mountains. Even now, a Power Zoid approaches, its long neck snaking this way and that in search of enemies to destroy. There is a tang of danger in the air, but the Power Zoid moves forward steadily. This is a creature of brute power. Its own strength is protection enough from most enemies. It carries no sensitive scanning equipment. It has no need for caution. I speak the name of power.
The giant ZRK! All that stand in his path must perish!
ZRK pauses and turns his gaze upon me. Compared to the strength of this creature, my own power is nothing. Then it speaks, and my blood turns to ice. The voice I hear has no warmth, no spark of emotion.
Stand aside, neighbor. Your time is done. I am master of Zoidstar now.
Ultimately leading and they stand tall. Monster machines have war to answer the call. Looking for a punching, they will crush all. The giant Zerks will make empires fall. In the canonical forms, the Zoid of power. Giant Zerks conquering our finest hour. Glowing orange eyes of techno-Zoid might. So the Indian Empire will never know night. Technological forms with Zoid of power. Giant Zerks conquering our finest hour. Glowing orange eyes of techno-Zoid might. So the Indian Empire will never know night. Giant Zerks, masters of planet Zoidstar. Giant Zerks, monster machines most bizarre. Giant Zerks, steal sauropods and brute power. Giant Zerks, thundering engines devour. The Zoidarians fall, but the Zoids remain. A planet Zoidstar, the monster machines reign. Giant Zerks, that Zoids that stand in the path must perish. Stand back, name a Zoidstar, giant Zerk will cherish. Giant Zerks, masters of planet Zoidstar. Giant Zerks, monster machines most bizarre. Giant Zerks, steal sorrow, thoughts of brute power. Giant Zerks, thundering engines keep power. But now comes one to match Giant Zerk's might. Zoidzilla, monarch of machine spite. Until Red Horn and his red Zoids invade, Giant Zerk's power Zoid prominence will fade. Giant Zerks, masters of planet Zoidstar. Giant Zerks, monster machines most bizarre. Giant Zerks, steal sorrow, plots of brute power. Giant Zerks, thundering engines keep power. Giant Zerks, masters of planet Zoidstar. Giant Zerks, monster machines most bizarre. Giant Zerks, steal solid plots of brute power. Giant Zerks, thundering engines keep power.
It is the never-ending battle between red and blue Zoids. It has been waged for centuries. It rages still, with no end in sight.
I, the Namer, last of the Zoidarians, guardian of the names of power, keeper of the legend of heroic combat, have spoken.